Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Max World Podcast. My name is Mac Taylor, and I'm coming to you live from my nerd kingdom from an undisclosed location. Today, we are going to be talking about the 2006 film Hatchet. Now, just to kind of give you some background, it's 2006, and as far as slashers are concerned, there are few and far in between. Unless you count those like direct-to-video indie flicks that they really suck. Like 90% of them are just awful. So we're not going to be talking about any of those today. But a lot of the films that were coming out around 2006 were a lot of reboots, remakes, and rehashes of already popular franchises. A good example would be Hills Have Eyes or Black Christmas. Oh my god, the Black Christmas remake. So you do talk about raping a classic, but we'll get to that, I'm sure, at some point in the podcast history, but today we're going just to focus on a good horror film, not something that destroyed a franchise. Director Adam Green grew up loving the 80s slasher craze and decided to make a film as a love letter to that particular piece of cinema history. With a small budget and a team of passionate youths, he made what may be considered one of the greatest new age slashers of the last decade. But enough of me sucking Adam Green's dick. Let's get into the movie. You see, we start in a wide shot of two men in a boat hunting gators in a Louisiana swamp. Father and son Samson and Ainsley Dunstan, played by Joshua Leonard, also known for Shark Night and Blair Witch Project. And Samson Dunstan is played by Robert Englund, otherwise known as Freddy fucking Krueger, and he's also in like every low-budget horror film that comes out. Has got some credit for Robert Englund, so you say what you want about Robert Englund, but the man finds himself some work and is usually the best part of any sort of movie he's in. So, but when it comes to this movie, it's one of the only exceptions to where like he's not probably the greatest in it because everybody else is just so fantastic in this film. But anyway, they are hunting gators in a swamp. Ainsley starts whining about having to pee, and Samson tells him to piss in the swamp. We get this really funny back and forth between the two, where Samson keeps calling him like a woman and like queer and all this other stuff. Just gets like statistical Southern dad on him. And like you could just tell that these two had that kind of chemistry going on. It was a real nice scene there. So Ainsley starts peeing off to the side, and a gator hops out and tries to bite his dick off, which is hilarious. It's one of the only jump scares in the movie. So he pulls out. He wants his dad to pull over so he can finish peeing. And this is like one of my only qualms with the film is when a gator jumps out and almost bites your dick off. How the fuck do you stop peeing? Like that you should just finish peeing at that point. Like there should just be no controlling yourself. I don't understand how he pinched it off to wait to get to shore, but it's one of these things where like the plot had to move forward and there had to be a reason for the people to get to land. He couldn't have been like, well, let's go to land so I can fucking dry my pants off. But just realistically, he would not have been able to control that. He would have peed. If he fell, he peed his pants at that point. Because, that would be my reaction if that were to happen to me. So Ainsley goes off to take his piss again, leaving Freddy, Samson, alone on the boat when a strange noise causes him to call out to Ainsley and grab his gun. Ainsley then zips up and rushes over to find his father ripped to shreds, like guts, intestines, everything is all over the place. Panicked and called to arms, he challenges whoever. He's like, come on out, you, I'll kill you. And then we get Victor Crowley's POV charging out of the bushes and brutally rips him apart, fucking slamming him into trees, tearing an arm here, ripping some back flesh there. It's nasty because you hear Ainsley screaming like, it hurts, oh my god, help me. Like just the it hurts thing, like it sticks in your mind. Like it's very unsettling. Then we jump to a Marilyn Manson song introducing us to a Mardi Gras festival with titties. All kinds of titties. Big ones, small ones, fat ones. But then we all that imagery. We get four men walking through the crowd, and we assume that these will be our main characters. But only two of them are our main characters. The other two are glorified cameos, one of which played by the director Adam Green. Ben and Marcus are two male heroes played by Joel David Moore of the movie Avatar, Grandma's Boy, things like that, and Dion Richmond of Scream 3 and Not Another Teen Movie. Ben is walking away from the party, and his friends ask him why. We learn Ben just had a bad breakup, and his friends take him to this beer-soaked titty fest to get his mind off of it, but he's having none of it. Every girl, this is actually one of his lines, every hot, half-naked girl I see back there reminds me of Christine. I'll probably get banged by a Bukowski guy. Bent over the beige love seat that my mom bought her. It's so funny. Like, just the life that Joel David Moore brings to this character is absolutely wonderful. So, Ben instead wants to go on a swamp tour that his friend back home told him about. Two of our friends immediately, they go back to the party, while Marcus begrudgingly, he really wants to go back to the party, but you could tell he's Ben's best friend, and he's like, okay, whatever, I'll go on this lame-ass swamp tour for you because I came here for you, but just know you owe me one. And they do a lot of back and forth with their banter, and just the way that they're playing off of each other is just so fantastic. It's something you have to watch the film to really enjoy. On their way to the voodoo shop, though, we get a fun exchange between them, showcasing how well they know each other. Like I said, the chemistry is just absolutely phenomenal. We even get Joel David Moore passing two people on the street, played by his dear mom and dad. It's pretty cool. They knock on the voodoo shop and are met by a makeup-clad Reverend Zombie, played by the legendary Candyman actor Tony motherfucking Todd. He informs him he does not do night tours due to a guy slipping on the boat and suing him for negligence. That cocksucker. He says if they want a night tour, they'll need to go to Madame Laveau's House of Voodoo, which, spoiler alert, he owns that shit too. Way to cross-promote your business, Reverend Zombie. So they go to said shop where they see some more titties. But these tits in question belong to Misty, played by Mercedes McNabb from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and Jolie Fiervanti. Pretty much all I know her from is this movie to date. I'm sure at some point I'll end up seeing her in something. Oh my god, it's Jolie Fiervanti. I can't even pronounce her fucking last name. She's great in this movie, though. Just because I don't know her from anything else does not mean she's not a fantastic actress. Get yourself some more roles, Jolie. I'd really love to see you do more. Anyway, they're shooting a Girls Gone Wild-esque porno with a director named Doug Shapiro, played by Bill Murray's brother Joel. And I know he's done more stuff, but he's most famous for coming out of the same vagina as Bill Murray. Which leads me to my other qualm with this film is, why the hell are they shooting a porno at a tourist swamp tour? Why are they not just back at Mardi Gras? That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. If you're yeah, I'm gonna shoot some Girls Gone Wild stuff on the middle of a boat in a swamp with a bunch of old people, just kind of seems like a little weird. But it was one of them things, I guess, they needed a higher body count, and they needed these characters to be here. And, they're all written very well. The characters are great. I love them in this movie. But it's almost if you think about it, I had to do in critiquing this movie, was to sit back and find things that don't necessarily make sense or that I have to point out, because I can't just keep praising it. I can only stroke its dick so many times. I've got to, try to find something to talk about that doesn't make sense. And that's definitely one of them. But anyway, that's a very small qualm. But people gotta die, so I get that logic. We then get the pleasure of meeting Sean, played by Perry Shen of The New Guy, which to date is the only film I've seen that he's in besides this series of films. But again, I'm sure I'll end up seeing him again later and be like, oh fuck, now I gotta mention this if I'm talking about Perry Shen again. It's going to happen with a lot of these actors and actresses. Just because I haven't seen them in something doesn't mean they haven't done it. I'm just, instead of me researching everything they've done and talking about it, I'm just going to talk about the things that they've been in that I have seen that way. It's a legit thing. I know them from this. So, Perry Shen is playing Sean. He's the tour guide. And he's clearly an Asian guy, a city guy, doing this very cheap Southern accent, which just absolutely it's hilarious. It's so much fun to watch him do this. Sean gets everyone on the bus where we meet the Primatios, played by Patricia Darbo, who I've not seen in anything else that I'm aware of, and Richard fucking Rielli. Grounded for Life, I believe, was that show's name. And he usually has cameos or very small roles in a lot of films, like even like Texas Chainsaw and stuff like that. Like he's this very small, businessy type role. But I see Richard Rielli and shit all the time, and I'm constantly reminded, like, oh yeah, he was the guy from Hatchet, because that was the first film I had seen him in. Marcus pops a squat next to Jenna to hit on that bitch, and then Ben sits next to our heroine, Mary Beth Dunstan. Does the Dunstan name sound familiar? Hint, hint, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. It comes to play later. Played by Tamara Feldman. Who I don't know from anything else besides this film. And he is just trying to start conversation and compliment her, and is just failing miserably, and Marcus is just looking at him in awe of the awkwardness that is being displayed. But anyway, it's a very funny exchange. And then we go off. It's dark now as the bus gets to the scare boat. And we get some banter again with Ben and Marcus. And Mary Beth, you could tell something's off about her, because she informs them like she's a local, she's not a tourist. So why is she on a tourist boat ride? Things like this, and you can tell she's got some other motives behind her. She's very quiet, very reserved, but very focused. And you see, Sean, he's trying to conduct the tour, but everybody just seems either disinterested or that they know more about the tour than he does, and it pisses him off. Because he tries to say something about a tree, and about like the graves to make it sound spooky, because it's supposed to be like a spooky swamp tour. And the Primatios are just like, well, no, we heard it was like this, and we heard it was like this. Like, basically giving an actual, like, realistic tour of the place. And then he tells this false story about Victor Crowley, how he was so ugly, and his father hit him in the face with a hatchet. And Mary Beth goes, that ain't the story. And he breaks his accent, and it is so funny, because then he goes right back into the southern accent. So, like, he pauses for a second. Everyone kind of looks around, and he goes, yo, tried to crawfish yet? Like, even he was like, shit, I gotta get this back in here. It's such good acting in by everyone, even with the looks and glances. We also get this false telling, like I said, the false telling of the Victor Crowley story. And then he starts talking about, like, ghost lights, and Mark is like, nah, man, those are marsh vapors. And then he's like, whatever, and he turns the light on, and you like, for a brief flash, see Victor Crowley. Like, he was probably, like, looking around, like, what's in this boat? Like, who are these people? And boom. And he runs away. And they're like, what was that? Like, it's again probably there's not a whole lot of jump scares in this movie, but that is one of them, because you don't expect it as an audience either. You're like, whoa, shit, okay, right, we're in a horror film, not a comedy. Shit, it's about to get real, and it sure does here in a few minutes. Okay, so then we transfer over. Sean gets the boat stuck on some rocks, and it starts raining. Oh, that's a fine how do you do, Miss Primatio. So that's one of her lines, is, oh, this is a fine how do you do. So Mr. Primatio tries to climb across a branch that goes across the mainland, and he slips and racks himself right on it. And then, if that's not enough, as he's tending to his balls, a gator jumps out and bites him on the leg. Don't you just hate it when that happens? The group then makes their way to the land, but most of them just keep falling in the water. Like, this scene, kind of, like, it's the only scene I actually, ever since the first time I watched it, was like, what the fuck are they doing? Because I understand slipping and falling, but the water's like a foot deep, and there's a scene where, like Shapiro falls in the water, and the gator starts kind of coming toward him, and he's trying to paddle, but it's a foot of water. Just stand up. Just stand up and run away. This is not hard to do. Like, why are you swimming right now? Just stand up and run away. That's the only thing, like the only legitimate thing that I didn't have to dig for to find a qualm with. I've always thought, like, why the fuck is he doing that? The group then makes their way to the land, and now Mr. Primadio's leg is bleeding. They're trying to tend to him, and first Sean and Marcus are carrying him, and there's some back and forth between Sean and Marcus is clearly just pissed off at Sean, and then Miss Primadio's trying to tend to him, and then all of a sudden we hear this "Daddy" like really fucking deep and loud, and everyone's like, "What was that?" Then we hear it again. I'm like, "Okay, yeah, we should probably not." That's some pretty scary shit because they right before that happened, she tells the actual real Victor Crowley story about how he was a deformed boy. And his father kept him hidden, and these kids were trying to see him. They throw firecrackers at the door, and it lit the house on fire. And while trying to cut to the door, he accidentally hits him in the head with the hatchet and kills Victor Crowley. And then after Mr. Crowley passed away, Victor's ghost came to haunt the swamp. And they're like, well, we already passed the house. And she's like, that wasn't the house. And he's like, well, how do you know that? She's like, that is. And they're standing right in front of the fucking house. And it's like, how did they not see that? Like, how? Like, I know is that horror logic of like, and then the reveal, but like, how did they not see that? It's kind of a funny little thing in there. It doesn't bug me per se. It just kind of like, oh well, yeah, that's a thing. So the Primadios, even though all this weird moaning shit happened, they're like, whatever. We're gonna go. Try our best. If you hear whining in the background, it's my dog. It's storming outside, and he's not too happy about it. So the Primadios are like super persistent in getting to this house, which again, after that noise, they should probably start questioning shit. And they get closer and closer, and they're trying to reassure, and everyone's like, nah, please, do not go. This was a mistake, even thinking this was a good idea. And then before anybody can really say anything else, we get the killer reveal. And Victor Crowley comes running out, scares the shit out of the audience, I think, at that point, and the people definitely, and grabs Mr. Primadio before he can run away, and takes the hatchet and like starts ramming it in his shoulder, and it goes like diagonally down his torso, which is fucking brutal because there's blood spraying everywhere all over Mrs. Primadio, who then she tries to run away, which if she was going to run away, she probably should have done that in the 10 seconds that it took to cut him all the way down. Like, she shouldn't have waited until he got cut in half, but it's whatever. She was in shock. And he grabs her by her teeth. And this is really cool how they do this. And he pulls the top part of her head off, like just pulls it back, rips you see the skin start ripping, and it fucking gets popped off, and her tongue's flapping with no top, and blood spraying everywhere, and it's an absolute crazy kill. One of my all-time favorite horror movie kills, because it's just so, one, creative, and two, super fucking cool. Not only how they did it, but just how it looks. So that happens, and Mary Beth just shoots him, and he falls, and they all panic and run away. Shapiro, however, instead of staying with the group, just runs off by himself, which is an awful idea, you know what I mean? Like, that's just stupid. Like, why would you not stay with the rest of the group? I'm going to go off by myself when there's this murderer running around that I just saw murder 2 people. And we get... He runs into a bush, and he ducks, and he sees Victor Crowley walk past. And he's like, oh, that's my chance to get out of here. And he runs right into Victor Crowley's chest. As if Crowley, like, walked by the bush and was like, I'm going to wait a second. And then just ran straight into his chest. And he grabs Shapiro's head, slowly turns it around, and pops it off. And his blood kind of goes psh, like a bloody soda can. It's so cool. And then we cut back to the rest of the group, who has found, first it's Mary Beth with her gun, and she's freaking out, and Ben sneaks up on her, Like, he grabs, it's like one of those grab and she turns around real quick. Why are you sneaking up on somebody with a gun? Why is that something? Like, that's probably the only decision Ben makes in this whole movie. Then I'm like, that is really stupid. Like, everyone's panicked and she already has shot the person. So you know the gun works. Why are you sneaking up on her? That is crazy. Anyway, Marcus has climbed a tree. Everyone's like, well, you know, come on down from there. He's like, no, I'm not coming down from there. I'm staying in this tree until somebody comes and gets me out of it. And they're like, well, can you see a road? And he's like, I see lights like way the fuck far away, but it's way too far. Like, I can't see shit. It's dark, and I don't want to die. Everybody else is like, oh, come on. Well, then we're going to leave without you. And he's like, fuck it. I don't want to be by myself in this tree. So he goes to climb down. He ends up, like, racking his nuts on the way down. Like, he falls. But like, he it kind of shows Marcus is, like, the audience character. Like, he hears a noise. He's like, nope, don't care where that came from. Like, it's bad. It's all bad. Just like we're like, you know, don't investigate that noise. Don't follow that sound. Or don't go in that room. Like, that's Marcus. His character in a nutshell is like, yeah, that's just sketchy. Let's not do that. So, like, he's probably my favorite, besides Ben, probably my favorite character in the whole franchise, because he is just so funny and so smart, except for the fact that he's loyal to Ben. That's the only thing that kind of fucks him over. I see the rest are walking, and then Ben goes, yeah, no one else is going to die. And then he trips over Shapiro's dead body. Everyone freaks out. Like, everybody freaks out. Everybody's trying to calm them down. And he's like, well, you know, he goes down, like, you know, he's hurt. Like, let's go to the shed. Let's gather some supplies and regroup, because they keep walking in circles. And so they go to the shed, and Mary Beth finds her father and her brother's mangled corpses. And there's a scene where she cries about it. But it's a very good acting moment for Tamara Feldman. And Ben's trying to, like, comfort her and trying to be there for her. And then outside, Jenna, Misty, Marcus, and Sean are all kind of standing around by this bush, which starts rustling. And then, oh, we should go check it out. Like, what if it's a person? What if they're alive? And Marcus is like, well, they're probably doing a lot better than some people we know. Like, let's not look in this bush. And they're like, well, you got the flashlight. You look in the bush. And he tries to hand out the flashlight, and they'll have none of it. So he goes, and he shines a flashlight in the bush. And we as the audience are like, when's it going to happen? When's it going to happen? When's it going to happen? And he looks in the bush, and it's a raccoon. And then, you know, he's pleasantly surprised. But not pleasantly surprised is Jenna, who Victor Crowley is now standing right behind. Grabs her and fucking uses a power sander to sand her fucking jaw off. Which is awesome, because they built this. They don't actually make gas-powered belt sanders. They had to make one, like, just as a prop for this movie, and it's so cool. And that scene and the makeup, just everything about the effects of this looks so great. And everybody's kind of struggling, trying to get away, and then Sean grabs a shovel, and Victor also grabs a shovel, and they fight over for a second. Then Victor takes the shovel and puts it on Sean's throat and stomps it down, cutting his head off after cutting his leg off with it. And then Jenna, who's not quite dead, but she's going to be dead soon, he's like, well, this isn't enough. He picks her up and impales her on the shovel stick. Like, and then shoves her down on, like, just farther and farther. Like, it's so brutal with her. Dude, she did not have an easy death. It was not quick. That was a long death. But again, the makeup just looks fantastic. And you know, good on Victor for recycling. He's like, well, I've already used the shovels, so I should use it again. You know, way to save the planet. Also, Victor and Mary Beth during that scene make really weird eye contact. Like, he stares at her for a good, like, 40 seconds. Just, like, locked eyes with her. So then, like, they do another, like, kind of run around, freak out. And they decide, I saw some gas cans back there. Let's go get the gas, throw it on him, and light him on fire. So they leave Misty as a stand guard, which was bad. That was just a bad idea. And Ben's in the shed, and he gets bit by like a dead raccoon and shit, like crazy. And he gets hit in the head with Misty's head and then her torso. And then Victor comes at him. Mary Beth hits him in the back of the head with like a hoe or like a rake or whatever, like a little like hand rake. And then Ben throws the gas on him and they light him up. And he falls down on fire and they're like, yes, like we did it. We're alive. And then nope, fucking it starts raining. Victor Crowley gets extinguished. And Ben gives like an iconic line of the series. He goes, you gotta be fucking kidding me. Because they're like, we was went through all this trouble and he's still not dead. And Mary Beth's like, oh, this has bought us some extra time. Let's go. And they run through a graveyard at this point in the movie. And we never see this graveyard in any of the subsequent sequels. It's the only time we see it. Which is kind of sad. Kind of wish they would, maybe in a future film, go back to the graveyard. Because I know it's on that island. Well, let's see it. Let's see more of it. And so they're running through the graveyard to get to the gate. Victor, he keeps like fucking with him. He's pops up at the gate, and Mary Beth kind of gets one over on him again. Like they keep slowly hurting him, and finally, like they go to a graveside. They turn around. Victor grabs Marcus. Sadly, crushes his ribs or something, and then like rips his arms off and smashes his skull against the director's name is on this gravestone. Smashes it against the gravestone. And again, just all these deaths are just super brutal. And then Mary Beth and they get into a fight, and Victor Crowley falls onto Ben and like spits drool stuff all over his mouth, which it makes him throw up later. And then he throws like a railing into Ben's foot, starts charging him. So Ben has to like push it through his foot, like long ways, cut his foot in half, to then impale Victor Crowley with this thing, which he then spits blood in his face and mouth. Poor Ben trading all the fluids with Victor Crowley. And Ben and Mary Beth get into a boat. All is well. They survive, tending their injuries. Mary Beth gets pulled underwater. She's struggling underwater. Ben's hand's reaching for her. She grabs his hand, sits up. It's Victor Crowley holding Ben's severed like forearm. Ben's dying in the boat. He grabs her. They're both screaming. Cut to black. Like that's it. Ends right there. Which is again like you leave this movie and you're like, what the fuck just happened? Like you need to see the sequel because you need to know immediately what happened. You don't know how that scene has resulted. And that's Hatchet. It is truly just one of the best, if not the best, slasher film of the past decades. Like, it's something I've watched numerous times and will continue to watch again and again and again and again because it is so absolutely good. I definitely recommend this one. It's definitely in my top 10 films of all time. And this is, if you haven't seen this movie, you're doing yourself a disservice. Go out and get this movie and watch it, especially if you're a fan of horror. This is right up your alley. This has been Max World Podcast. Next time, we'll be talking about Hatchet 2, which will be quite fun to do. So thank you guys for listening.